Okay, so um, before I start my long drawn out speech, I just want to ask the public, um, should a narcissist be exposed? I've seen many videos in my during my research where people talk about narcissist exposure and they also talk about revenge. So I'm gonna talk about the both in this video, but I wanted to talk about first, is it appropriate to expose a narcissist? Well, from my unbiased opinion, it depends on what type of narcissist you're dealing with. It really depends. Like, um, for example, when you deal with this person, have they? I'm trying to think of the proper words to look for it. When you deal with this person, like, and you've outgrown their supply and demand, did they leave you alone? Like, because you know how they say those type of people, they hover and they hoover. So my question to you would be, when you've outgrown their um, grooming stages, do they leave you alone? Or, do they leave you alone for long periods of time and they come back? Or is it like a short period of time and then they come back? You know, how often in between the times do they hoover you? And for those who have dealt with a narcissist and they have gone through either the discard phase or the no contact phase, um, and the narcissist did leave you alone, did they move on to another source of supply? And when they did move on to another source of supply, did their behavior get worse? Or did it stay the same and it was the same old petty old mind games, petty old stuff? And I ask this question because those are the key questions, in my opinion, that make or break whether or not a narcissist should be exposed. Okay, because I think it's fair to say that a lot of us have been exposed to people who are not necessarily narcissists, but they're jerks, or they're the queen bees or whatever. So they're not really like bad people, but they're kind of toxic. Okay, you get those people. Then you get um, the the people who have NPD, which is narcissistic personality disorder, and then you get people who have a psychosis, who are dealing with psychological illnesses or psychological personality disorders. So you get personality disorders, and then you get psychological personality disorders. So you know, depending on what situation one person could be in, and how the narcissist attachment style to you can determine also if it's appropriate to expose them. So, for example, if you're dealing with a narcissist and they have OCD, for an example, this person may or may not present a threat to your future and may leave you alone if they're closed. Now, I just want to make a quick note. I've been sitting over here for a while, maybe about an hour before I recorded my video. Before I came and sat over here, there were no cars. There were no cars that came past here. As soon as I sat down and recorded my videos, this is the second car that's gone past. He had a smirk on his face, a narcissistic smirk. Now, these are the subtle tactics that gang stalkers will use to try to distract you and stop you from speaking and telling your story and sending your message. Because if they're able to hop in between your videos and distract you or interrupt you, then they do that in hopes to um, have you lose your train of thought and stop you from sending the message completely. So when a lot of I don't know if you've seen in some of my other videos where I'll be talking and someone will interrupt my videos, or it'll be a car that'll make a really long, a really loud noise with their engine, or you'll hear an excessive amount of um, alarms from the fire trucks. That's often at times what happens to target individuals when they start speaking up and making the audience who are not targets of this type of behavior more aware. They'll Gang stalkers will intentionally do things like that. Yeah, they'll use distract. They'll do things to distract you, and you know what I mean. They'll throw you. They'll try to throw you off. Okay, give me a second. Okay. Um. Anyway, so is it appropriate to expose a narcissist? It really depends on your circumstance and your situation. Now, if you're dealing with someone like who has a form of psychosis, so I mentioned somebody who has OCD. I mean, it really just depends on what their triggers are, but most of the time, narcissists with OCD, if you are not willing to comply, if you're not willing to fit into their status quo or their obsessive, like compulsive disorder, a lot of times they'll leave you alone because it's too much. Because people with OCD, they need um, a certain amount of order within their presence in order to properly function. If things are not going their way, they're 9 times out of 10 at some point they might have a mental breakdown and walk away from the situation. Is the point I'm trying to make. That's the likelihood of it. Now there are some people with OCD and MPD that will latch onto a target for whatever reason. Those are the more rare situations, but those particular type of narcissists, in my opinion, is not really someone that needs to be exposed ASAP. Now, who, in my opinion, would I see someone that is more qualified to be exposed? I would say the sociopaths and psychopaths and the Machiavellian narcissists are the top three. I would say, in my personal opinion, um, the number one at the top of the list would be a psychopath that needs to be exposed. Number two would be a Machiavellian narcissist. Would really really. I honestly believe that the Machiavellian at times, depending on how bad their behavior gets and how manipulative they can be, sometimes they can go for number one. It just depends on the type of psychopath that you're dealing with and if they're ready to be exposed. But I feel like Machiavellian and psychopath kind of go hand in hand, and they're interchangeable depending on the type of narcissist that you're dealing with and how much of a threat they can be to society as a whole. So yeah, I might change my answer and say that Machiavellian may need to be exposed first, and the only reason why I say that is because it's nothing more dangerous um, dealing with a person who who is a psychopath than dealing with someone who pretends that they're not a psychopath. So why do I say that? Well, I'm sure in life we've met many people that we thought were kind, many people that we thought were really, 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 really good people, people who were sent in our lives to help us, who are like guardian angels. There are a lot of people who pretend that they are that person. They a lot of There are a lot of narcissists who benefit and get supply from pretending to be the hero. And I'm pretty sure that, nowadays, because of how society is starting to turn out, we appreciate someone who's a little bit more honest. And the downside to that is being more vain than somebody who is seemingly kind, right? And sinister. And this I think this is also part of the reason why Donald Trump won the election when he did, because the people prefer someone that is more honest and may struggle with vanity than someone who pretends to be kind, pretends to help, pretends to be the hero, and is really the villain. I think we the people have gotten sick and tired of two-faced people, whether they're narcissists or not. We don't benefit from someone in this world, in this society, the way the world is I believe forming and progressing, is we don't need liars and manipulators. Like at this point in time, we don't need that, because it is a survival thing. It has to become a thing where if we don't do right by the planet, by this planet, we're not doing right by the solar system. And if we don't do right by the planet that we're living on and the solar system that is attached to it, that has formed this planet is naturally going to attack the problem, right or wrong. Scientifically, we're either going to destroy the planet or the planet is going to destroy us. And in my opinion, that's a double whammy, because if we destroy the planet that we live on, we don't have shelter, we don't have supply, we don't have access to resources, we don't have a life. If this earth were to decide to crumble because of our refusal to take better care of it, it's going to crumble. But say um, if the earth were to decide to survive at the last minute, say the earth is via vibration and frequency, acknowledging that we human beings are not willing to do better. We're not willing to take care of the earth, and the earth decides that it wants to survive. It's going to get rid of us. It's going to see us as the virus. It's going to see us as the bad bacteria, the fungi that should not be there, a foreign substance, and it's going to treat us accordingly. The earth is not a robot. You know what I'm saying? It's a living it's a living being. It's a living organism, just like every other living existence here. So, in order to heal and regenerate and to purify, what would you need to do in order to fulfill that process? Get rid of the problem. If we human beings do not agree and comply to the terms and conditions instead of trying to make everybody comply to unrealistic expectations, we will be part of the problem on this planet. It's just that simple. We can sit here and try to play God all day and night, but what it really comes down to is complying and submitting to the universal law. It's that simple. If we do not do so, we will be seen as narcissists and we will be seen as a target. We will become the target because we are the problem. There are other living organisms that need to be here, that need to survive, and we have a balance. There's a balance of life here. And a lot of the times, narcissists in general do not respect the universal law. They don't. And they treat people and the universe according to how they feel. This is what it all comes down to. This is why I'm making these, at least this is my personal reason as to why I'm making these videos. Everybody has a reason as to why they talk about narcissists, expose their tactics, but this is the reason why I'm doing it, you know? So let me get to the point. Somebody that is elected to be in charge of running the planet, right, needs to be honest with the people. The people deserve to know the truth. Machiavellian narcissists don't necessarily care about the truth. What they care about is controlling the information. I mean, this is not even just Machiavellian this is just narcissists in general, but the I guess the bottom of the barrel narcissists understand that there's a natural flow, there's a natural order, and there's a balance between good and evil. The mediocre narcissists know about this, and they prefer not to take things so far to where they disrupt that balance. Now, when we're dealing with Machiavellians, when we're dealing with psychopaths and sociopaths, those are the ones who are willing to tip the scales. And I want to make the people more aware of these types, because these types of people, these personality types, are very destructive when they're hitting a collapse. These people, these personality types, are very dangerous and very chaotic when they are on the verge of a narcissistic collapse. Very dangerous. So, um, now, why do I say that these three personality types need to be exposed? Well, I'll answer that question. Um, I don't know if you all have noticed, and I'm asking rhetorically, of racial profiling within um, black and brown communities, people of color in their communities. Have you all noticed an excessive amount of racial profiling? They're closed. They're closed. Okay, so why do I say people like that, deserve to be exposed? Why do I say that? Because these personality types don't know when to stop. A lot of times, if I've noticed, just based off of the people who have been diagnosed, because they were either exposed or their behavior got so bad that their character was shown to, the public, or maybe even people who were able to professionally diagnose them. You ever notice that the ones who get caught up and, they slip up because they do something so bad, or their character gets exposed. You ever notice that those are the people who are diagnosed with either schizophrenia, or ASPD, which is like antisocial personality disorder, which is um, I mean, you can align as someone who has ASPD. You can align them with someone who has maybe perhaps like Asperger's, like a form of autism, or you can align someone who has ASPD with someone who is like more like who has more sociopathic tendencies, or you can align them with the psychopath. It really just depends. But what I've noticed about people who have ASPD is that they're more aligned with sociopathic tendencies. That's just something that I've noticed personally. Now that may not be the case for others, but someone who's been diagnosed with ASPD, nine times out of 10 has struggled with socializing with other people. They have a struggle with sharing, playing fair with others, and so a lot of the times they may require a lot more alone time, or the way that they think may be so disorderly that they cannot function around other groups of people unless they're around someone, they're around people who are like-minded. um, so with these people, I found out stories about some people who have been diagnosed with ASPD. I found out some stories. Um, but one story, I'm not going to go into depth because I'm not trying to trigger or traumatize anyone right now. This is just the video explaining why I feel like some narcissists need to be exposed. Once it becomes clear the type of narcissist they are, they do need their character needs to be exposed, but not until after, unfortunately, not until after the abuse has been done, because you can't expose somebody on information that you don't have. This is the dark side of narcissism. Um, a lot of people get to walk away with their freedom, and they get to walk away with an experience, and they get to learn something. But there are some others who deal with this narcissist that they weren't so lucky. They didn't get to walk away with their life. They didn't get to walk away with their freedom. Everything may have got destroyed, and some people have been harmed very badly, or even in some cases murdered by a narcissist. So this is why I'm talking about this with the public. Okay, so what would be an appropriate scenario to expose a narcissist? Now, I was asking the question before I was interrupted by the cars coming through. Um, what would be an appropriate time to expose a narcissist? Um, well, I don't know if y'all have noticed, but a lot of police officers, bad cops specifically, racist white cops, have been going around racially profiling the communities of people of color. I don't know if y'all have noticed that. So any person that is a non-white person has been profiled by the white police department, more specifically the racist white police department. I have personally had some instances where there was a good white cop and he or she noticed the behavior of their either racist white partner or a racist white cop that was like in their area, and they started kind of putting me on game. I'm not gonna say too much, but it's gotten to the point where the profiling has become so obvious, so blatant, so disrespectful that I've noticed that good cops were forced to separate from these people and kind of let their character shine. I've noticed a pattern. I've noticed a pattern of this. I've noticed a pattern of good cops having to, step to the side, and I mean that literally. They've had to step to the side, pull me to the side, and kind of acknowledge that you know some of these cops were racist and assholes. So if a cop is willing to put their life on the line, put their job on the line, and put their partnership on the line, put their peace and maybe even police privilege on the line to expose somebody's bad behavior, it should tell you enough to let you know that it was behavior that needed to be exposed. I mean, because it gets to a point where the community can see a toxic person or a toxic people, a group of people's behavior for so long before it gets to a point where, the community, deserves justice. So, like I said, an example would be some of the racist white cops going around the neighborhoods of people of color and, profiling them and making their lives harder. How many you people of color, it don't matter if you're poor or rich or middle class, it don't matter how much money you make. How many times in your lifespan have you dealt with a racist white cop, male or female, stopping you, harassing you, and giving you a hard time because of the color of your skin? You don't have to be, I don't care what religion you are. How many times have you dealt with a racist white cop who pulled you over for illegitimate reasons and really had little to no probable cause to pull you over, or engage in a conversation with you because of the color of your skin, and you knew it was because of the color of your skin? How many times has that happened to you? And say if you are a good white person and you've had friends or family members or even a significant other that had colored skin. How many times have you seen this person being treated unfairly by racist cops? How many times have you had to personally step in and stand up for this person because you knew that you saw that you were dealing with a police officer racially profiling someone you loved and care about? How many times have you seen it? Too many, I would imagine. Probably anytime you go outside, you probably are concerned that one of your friends, one of your family members, or your significant other could be shot or killed by a racist police officer. How many times do you have to walk outside your house being afraid of losing your loved one due to racism? That's narcissistic energy in itself. To treat someone poorly, to get energy from them, it's narcissism. And I believe that form of narcissism needs to be exposed, and people who practice racism, need to be exposed. Because at this point, not enough of it is taught in school, but enough is being taught for so that the community knows and understands that racism is wrong, and anybody who practices it is wrong, and is doing so intentionally. And to do something intentionally for so long, it becomes a point in time where we, the community, have to acknowledge that this person has a mental illness or a personality disorder. And even mental illness, that excuse only gets a person so far. So racism is a narcissistic energy, and anybody who practices it at this point in time, because of how the education system has changed since the 1800s, it's wrong. It's wrong. Like, um, segregation and racism, genocide are being taught in school. Not enough, but it's being taught in school to where people know what they're doing now. Anyone who practices any form of racism, it doesn't matter their color, their skin, or their gender, is doing something knowing that it's wrong, knowing the emotional and spiritual damage that it has on someone, and doing it intentionally to feel better. That's narcissistic fuel. That's negative narcissistic supply. And anyone who practices those ideals needs to be exposed at this point. Because we've all gone to the same damn school, and we've seen how people of color were lynched and killed unfairly because of the color of their skin. So we know that anybody who practices any form of racism is in support of harming, murdering, and lynching someone of color, or bringing about holocaust to a group of people that are non-white, or bringing about genocide to people of color. They support those ideals, and that is narcissism, and that type of behavior needs to be exposed, period. We can no longer give people credit for saying, oh, well, they teach white supremacy in school. No, they don't. Not anymore. Not anymore. You don't get to fly with that excuse anymore. When Jane Elliott started teaching, educating white people on how not to be racist, it was no longer an excuse anymore. It's no longer an excuse anymore. Now I will acknowledge the subtleties, like, white privilege. I'm willing to acknowledge that. I'm willing to acknowledge that, you know, you see some of these Ivy League schools, and you notice that they have a majority white population. Yes, I can acknowledge that. But racism isn't being taught in school like how it was back in the 50s and the 40s. It's not being taught the same. So yes, we will acknowledge its subtleties, but change is slow. Progress is slow, but nonetheless still progressive. So that excuse is not going to fly anymore. And once we start getting more and more good white people who are willing to teach the white community what's appropriate and what's not, via the black confirmation, via people of color confirmation, there are certain behaviors that are not going to be able to slide anymore, and certain people's characters need to be exposed when they exhibit this type of behavior. When they exhibit this type of behavior, they're willingly walking into a narcissistic energy, and they're consensually walking in to an energy where it's very destructive and evil towards people, good people who've done nothing wrong. Okay, so that is, I believe that when someone is a racist, they need to be exposed, because that is a form of overt narcissism that cannot be contained by suppressing it, because it's going to come out. If someone suppresses their racist tendencies, it's going to come out later. So they can pretend to not be a racist all day, but at some point they're going to end up doing something really fucked up and messed up to someone who's a person of color. And then what? By then it'll be too late. So we need to start moving a little bit faster when it comes to exposing certain narcissists. It's that simple. Now, if the justice system refuses to tackle that narcissist, then that's just on the justice system. But we, the community, have to do our part. We, the community, have to do our part by exposing certain people that need to be exposed. So, what is another type of person that needs to be exposed? A serial killer, or a serial any like histrionic personality disorders. For example, someone who has a pattern of of murder, because there's a difference between murder and killing somebody. Okay, And I'm going to get into that in a minute. I'm not going to talk about that right now. But there is a difference between murdering somebody and killing somebody. So I'm talking about serial murderers. And then we're talking about serial rapists as well. So people who like to go around and sexually assaulting anybody. It could be a child, a man, a woman, an adult, someone who's disabled, someone that's an elderly. It doesn't matter their preference, but somebody who likes to go around and intentionally sexually attack and sexually abuse people who did not give consent. Those are people who also need to be exposed because they are a threat to society. Yes, they need to be exposed. Now, I understand that some circumstances a victim is in way too much danger to speak out. And I personally, I understand, that situation. I do because I've been through it myself. That's why I was quiet because it was too dangerous for me to speak out. I had too many abusers in my life, and I still do, but it just got to the point for me where I had to choose freedom over security. I had to. So yeah, I understand that some situations a victim may not be able to speak out right away because the abuser is too close, breathing down their neck. And we, the community, need to um, educate ourselves on, subtle telltale signs because it is subtle in the beginning when somebody is a victim. How can you tell that um, a victim is with their abuser and they're being held hostage, or it's too dangerous for them to leave, or the abuser has control over their finances, or a lot of abusers like to do this thing where they'll take your ID, they'll take your social security, they'll take your documentation to make sure that you can't go anywhere without them. And that's a form of human trafficking, by the way. Those are also subtle signs to tell that not only is a person dealing with an abusive narcissist, but they're dealing with a possible trafficker. Because ordinary narcissists are not going to go that far. All they want is narcissistic supply. If they can get it from you, they don't care how much money you make, they don't care how big you are, they don't care. They just want supply. Now, when we're dealing with psychopaths, sociopaths, they're more likely to be human traffickers because they detach themselves from having a conscience. It's just that simple. Sociopaths, in some situations, will have compassion for you, but not enough to do the right thing. No. Psychopaths, if they decide to leave you alone, it's out of purely respect. It has nothing to do with doing the right thing. It has nothing to do with them being scared of you because psychopaths have detached themselves from their conscience as well, but in a different way. Psychopaths function as if they have nothing to lose. That's because they don't. The only thing that gives them fuel is latching on to their victim until the victim dies, whether by their own doing or by stress, something stress related. Now, sociopaths, on the other hand, most of the time when you'll see a sociopath run away is when they're dealing with someone who is maybe like a super empath or an empath or just a good person who reaches a point of supernova. And I think that good people are able to reach a point of supernova. It's just more prevalent in empaths and super empaths. But good people who vibrate on a high frequency and they tap into their light energy can reach a point of supernova as well. This is just my opinion. I'm not I don't study astrology or astronomy. Excuse me. I don't study astronomy, so I don't know very much about this. But anybody who decides to tap into their light energy enough to where they change their frequency into a good person's vibration can um, can have a supernova, and that's just a lot of people explain that and they say um, supernova is just obtaining enough dark matter to where a star or a light beam explodes and is able to basically like metaphorically or symbolically um, spread away the dark energy or the shadows. So, what is the point? What would get a sociopath to leave you alone is if you have a moment of supernova, or you just get a moment of like slight Batman energy, where you're like tapping into your like vigilante type of energy. It's like good energy, but it's dark energy. When you tap into that, and you kind of are willing to take off the gloves, that's when some sociopaths, if not all sociopaths, will flee the scene. And that's why I think sociopaths are kind of at the bottom of the list when it comes down to knowing what narcissists to expose, is because once you're hitting that power up level, the sociopath is already long gone by then, if not on their way out the door. It's the psychopaths who have completely annihilated their conscience. So sociopaths are somewhat tapped in, not all the way. And then psychopaths are 9 times out of 10 the ones who completely detach from their conscience and are completely, I would say, if not borderline 100% reprobate, very close to that number. Very close. So they only have this like hunter versus prey mindset. It's not even a hunter gatherer, because hunter gatherers do that out of survival. But a reprobate mindset is pure hunter, pure carnivoric, pure like reptilian like type of energy. You know what I mean? Just like, I gotta eat, I gotta destroy, I gotta do this no matter what. Like, survival mode meets hunter versus prey instincts. That's all they see. That's all they know. And like I said, they move like they have nothing to lose, because they don't. If you detach from your conscience, you detach from your intuition, you detach from empathy, and you detach from whatever skills that require you to communicate with other people in an effective way. And this is just facts. So these are people that, at some point in time, when they are elevated to a position of power, and it's been made clear that their character has been shown, and they're not going to change, they're not willing to express any remorse or compassion or empathy in circumstances where they've caused a significant amount of damage, their character needs to be exposed so that the justice system can handle them appropriately. Yes, I do agree that those such people need to be exposed, because some of us have made the sacrifice of being seen as or called a snitch in order to get some of these people locked away because they needed to go to jail. That's just the reality of it. Some of us have made that risk, okay? Because in a lot of communities, and it's getting to the point where um, even some of the higher middle class, like middle class, and then the higher class, like the suburban and the urban suburban communities, have bandwagon on the culture of no snitching. And the only reason why they did that is because they started realizing that in the poor people communities and in the hood, we use that rule to hide abuse, because a lot of us are ashamed. We don't want, we a lot of us wanted to stay committed to our image instead of doing what was right. All of us have suffered from um, the no snitching syndrome. A lot of us are coming out of it. A lot of us who are coming out of post traumatic slave syndrome are coming out of that no snitching policy syndrome. A lot of us are coming out of that. Because we needed to break through that in order to do the right thing. It's one thing to rat somebody out unnecessarily, like, you know what I mean. But it's another thing to be a hero to the community. There's a difference. Some people, you really don't need to ruin their life by sending them to jail, but there are some people who they should have been in jail a long time ago. And because of that no snitching policy was only used when it was convenient for certain people, it's held our community back for so long. So yeah, a lot of us have put our reputation on the line to send some of these predators and narcissists to prison, and most of and the unfortunate part, and this kind of brings up the topic that I was talking about before. But a lot of us have had no other choice but to go to police officers who have profiled against us because that was the only thing that was presented in front of us. Most of the good police officers are inside the prisons, or they're dealing with inmates specifically, or they're nowhere to be found when you need them the most. They always, for some reason, send us the asshole cops. Don't know why, but that's what a lot of us have been through, where we were ready to speak up and we're ready to expose an abuser to not only get out of the situation that we're in, but to potentially help other victims. And we were intentionally sent bad cops who didn't do anything but laughed about the situation and made a joke about it or made the situation worse. So that was some of our situations. A lot of us had to go through this, which goes back to the racial profiling that I was talking about. Um, so a lot of us have put our lives on the line, our safety, our reputations on the line to do the right thing for the community. And I'm sure some of y'all who have been there and know what I'm talking about understand how frustrating it is to do the right thing by the very people that the abuser has harmed, and then the victim or the abused person comes to you and says, "Why you snitch?" when they're a victim themselves. I know that's very I'm sure some of y'all know exactly what I'm talking about when I say that. Some of y'all know damn well exactly what I'm talking about when I say that. Where you do the right thing because or you expose an abuser, right? Because you see the abuser is abusing you, and then you see the abuser abusing another person and other people, other groups of people. So it's not just you and one other person. It's like 17 other victims, or 70, or 100,000, or you find out that this person abused so many other people. It ain't just you. And so you think that you're doing the right thing by exposing them and bringing their character to light, and then you get the very people that are victims of this person getting mad at you for doing for essentially saving their lives and getting them out of that situation. I'm sure some of y'all understand exactly how frustrating that is to go through that, to help somebody, and then and the way that they express their gratitude is, "Why you snitch? Why you tell?" Or to get mad at you when that person didn't even know that they were inches away from death. I'm sure some of y'all completely understand how difficult that is. Instead of being given a hug or a genuine thank you, it's, "Oh, you a snitch, you a rat, you a whatever." I'm sure some of y'all understand. So, when it comes down to exposing a narcissist, some people ask, how do you go about it? How do you know the right time to expose a narcissist? I don't know. I mean, I have been asking myself that same question because so many people around me it got to a point in my life where so many people were telling me to stand up for myself. And when I was dealing with someone that was diabolical, who was always underhanded and willing to go behind someone's back to cheat them, I didn't know how to stand up to them because most of those people, they're very passive aggressive, and you don't know that it's them doing it until the damage has already been done. And then by then, some of y'all probably understand when a person experiences shock after finding out that someone that they once trusted and loved and supported, you know, um, threw them under the bus. I'm sure some of y'all have been through the shock, right? Where you're like, "Oh my God, this person, like, no, no, no." You almost like go through the denial stage, and you're like, "No, no, no, I can't believe this person. I thought they were better than that." You know what I mean? And it takes a while to like kind of process that the person that you least expected is the person that was wholeheartedly doing you like that. You know what I mean? Like doing you like that without any mercy, without a conscience, without just no voice of reason. Just pure evil, just doing you like that, doing you dirty like that. You know what I mean? A person goes through shock, And there's no telling how long that shock is gonna last. I'm just gonna keep it a buck 50. Um, there's no telling how long that shock is gonna last. Especially, I mean, you know, I would hate. I'm not trying to push my trauma onto you guys because some of y'all are new to the topic of narcissism, and I'm not trying to just shove it down your throat. I'm not trying to do that at all. I'm just trying to educate you and where I can. You know, my the information that I'm presenting is limited because I'm not a professional in this, but this is just things that I've had to go through and experience and others. Just growing up, being raised by a malignant covert narcissist, you learn a lot from their behavior. And the unfortunate part is when you're born in a family filled with people who choose narcissism or over making sacrifices and doing the right thing. You learn a lot from their behavior. You learn a lot. I learned a lot from their behavior. I can say for myself. And there's so many different phases that a victim will go through in order to recover and break through whatever situation that they're in. And narcissism is a cold piece. It's a cold piece.